Hey, I'm your storyteller. I'd love to know where you're watching from. You can tell me in the comments section. When you are ready, lean back, and let's dive into this week's horror stories. This happened to me and my friend, who I will refer to as Kayla for safety reasons. We were both 17 at the time, still in high school, and we had this little tradition of going on late-night drives whenever it rained. Not for any wild reason, we just liked how calm everything felt. Empty roads, music playing soft, the windshield wipers setting a rhythm. It was kind of our version of therapy. One night around 11, we were driving down this narrow back road on the outskirts of our town in Oregon. It had been raining on and off all day, and by then it had settled into a steady mist. No streetlights, barely any houses, just trees on both sides like the road was slicing through the woods. Every so often you'd catch a glimpse of a reflector on a guardrail, but that was it. We were talking about dumb stuff, crushes, classes, the usual, when Kayla pulled out her old film camera. She was really into photography, always had that thing with her. She mostly did black and white stuff, super artsy. She looked out the window and went, "This fog is perfect. Pull over. I want to get a shot." So I pulled into this little dirt turnout just off the road. We got out, and it was honestly kind of beautiful. The mist hanging low over the trees, the rain tapping on the roof of the car. Kayla walked a little ahead to line up her shot with the road vanishing into the trees like something out of a dream. She took a few photos, each flash lighting up the fog for a split second like heat lightning. I stayed by the car, leaning against the hood, scrolling through my phone when I noticed something. It was right after the third flash, maybe 50 feet behind Kayla near the edge of the trees. It looked like there was someone standing there. Just a dark shape, barely visible, but there. I blinked and stood up straighter. "Hey," I called her. "Take one more, but aim it toward the woods." She paused, confused, but turned and took another photo. Flash. Nothing. Just the trees. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Thought I saw something." We got back in the car. She set the camera on the dash and we drove off. About a week later, I went over to her place. She'd had the photos developed. This tiny little shop downtown still did film, and she always used them. When I walked into her room, the pictures were all laid out on her floor. They looked amazing. Super atmospheric, fog curling around the trees, wet pavement, that weird silvery glow rain gives off under a flash. And then we got to the third photo. There was definitely someone there, standing just off the road, partly in the trees, wearing what looked like a hospital gown, head tilted to one side like something was broken in their neck. And their face. God, their face. Their mouth was open in an unnatural way, and their eyes were just white. No pupils, no expression. Kayla just stared at it. "That's not edited," she said. "That's the original print." The next photo, where she turned toward the trees, was empty. No person, but in the bottom corner by the base of a tree, there was a blur, like something had moved too fast for the shutter to catch, not a smudge on the lens. We sat there in silence. Neither of us really knew what to say. After that, we kind of just dropped it. We didn't want to look at the photo again. I think both of us felt like if we acknowledged it too much, something would notice. We should have just thrown it out and went to the police, but we didn't. Then a few nights later, Kayla texted me, "I think someone's been in my room." I called her immediately. She sounded scared, whispering. She told me she'd woken up to a flash in the dark, like from a camera. She thought maybe it was a dream, but when she turned on her light, her camera was on the floor. But here's the part that really messed with us. It had a fresh roll in it, and it was used. The pictures she had taken earlier were all over the floor, and one was missing. The one with the person we had seen in the woods. The next morning, she took the roll in for development. Out of pure paranoia, she said. She didn't even want to look through them, so I went with her to pick them up. Most of the photos were black, some were blurry, but a handful were of her, sleeping. One was taken from the foot of her bed, another from the hallway through a cracked door. The final photo showed her clearly asleep, but what made it worse was the edge of something just barely visible on the right side of the frame. A hand, holding the camera. She told her dad, and they called the police. They said there were no signs of forced entry, but Kayla swore up and down her door had been locked, deadbolt and all. She hasn't used that camera since. We never figured out who or what it was. They never caught anyone. No follow-ups. Nothing. I think whatever we caught on camera in the forest somehow followed us home. But whatever it was, neither of us has experienced anything paranormal since that incident. I wanted to share something that happened a few years ago. I've never really talked about it outside my family, but it still messes with me. It was the 4th of July. I was 17. In my family, we never did big celebrations or anything. No fireworks in the driveway, no loud cookouts. My dad would just grill burgers. We'd sit outside with lemonade and watch the neighbors' fireworks from our porch. It wasn't exciting, but it was kind of nice. Low-key. Predictable. That night was the same as always. We ate, watched the sky light up from a few blocks over, and around 10:30, things started winding down. My little sister got tired and went inside, and not long after, so did my mom. I hung out for a bit longer with my dad, then went up to my room. I cracked my window open and sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling on my phone, listening to the last few distant pops from leftover fireworks. Then, I saw something, just out of the corner of my eye. Movement, outside my window. I looked up. There was someone standing on our roof. At first I thought I was seeing things. It was dark, no moon, no porch lights. But it was a silhouette. A man, definitely. Tall. He was maybe 6 feet from my window, just standing there, facing me. I couldn't see his face, but somehow I knew he was staring right at me. I felt paralyzed. I kept thinking, there's no way. I live in a 1-story house. There's no way someone could just be standing there. But then he tilted his head in a creepy, real slow way. That broke whatever spell I was under. I jumped back, grabbed my phone, and ran to my parents' room. I tried to sound calm, but my voice was shaking. "Dad, someone's on the roof." He was half asleep, but he sat up quick. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I saw him, right outside my window." That got him moving. He threw on a t-shirt, grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand, and followed me back to my room. I was hoping the guy would be gone. I mean, who wants to actually be right about something like that? The roof was empty. Dad shined the flashlight across the shingles, but there was nothing there. "There is no one there, buddy. You probably just saw your reflection," he said, but I could tell he didn't fully believe it, as I've never said anything like this to him before. "I'm telling you, he was right there," I said. Still, he stepped out onto the roof barefoot, which was kind of badass and stupid at the same time, checked around, even walked the length of it. Nothing. Not a single sound. No footprints. No loose shingles. Nothing disturbed. He checked the backyard too. All quiet and locked up. Eventually, he said, it was probably a squirrel or something, and went back to bed. I didn't argue. But squirrels don't have the silhouette of a man. I locked the window, pulled the blinds shut, and tried to forget about it. I laid in bed for hours, wide awake, flinching at every creak in the walls. It was probably around 2 a.m. when I started drifting off. Then I heard footsteps, right above my room, pacing, slowly across the roof, back and forth, back and forth. I just stared up at the ceiling, barely breathing. Then it stopped. Silence. Until I heard a voice. It was low, raspy. A man's voice right outside my window, just on the other side of the glass. "You saw me." I was filled with adrenaline. I just laid there with my heart pounding, doubting myself if I'd really heard it. I eventually snapped out of it and ran out in the hallway screaming for my dad again. He didn't ask questions this time. He saw my face and went into full-on dad mode. He checked everything. Under the bed, behind the curtains, even opened the window and stepped back out onto the roof. Nothing. Not even a mark. The next morning, I was still jumpy. I had barely slept. I went outside to check for myself, and that's when I saw something weird. On the outside of my window, drawn into the layer of dust on the glass, was a handprint. Not like a palm pressed flat. This looked smeared, like long fingers, and maybe a nose? Like someone had leaned in real close just to watch. And here's the thing. There's nothing to really stand on the outside of that window. No balcony or ladder. Ever since that night, I don't sleep in that room on the 4th of July. I crash on the couch or stay with friends because I still think about that voice and what it said. It was 2:13 in the morning when I woke up to a buzz from my phone. Just one vibration, but it pulled me out of sleep instantly. The room was pitch black except for the faint light from the screen on my nightstand. There was a message from an unknown number. No text, just a video file. Half awake and not really thinking, I opened it. It was shaky, low quality, like it was recorded on an old phone in the dark. At first, I couldn't tell what I was looking at. Then it clicked. It was my bedroom. The video was of me sleeping. The angle was from the foot of my bed, like someone had stood there and filmed me while I was asleep. I paused it. Immediately, I sat up and looked around. Nothing seemed out of place, but I had that awful gut feeling that something wasn't right, like I wasn't alone. I turned on my phone's flashlight and checked the closets and corners of the room just to be sure. But nobody was there. I was about to open the bedroom door when I heard footsteps behind it, running away down the hall. That's when it really hit me. Someone was in my place. I wanted to convince myself that maybe it was noise from a neighbor, but I live alone in a block with a lot of elderly people with no one above me. I knew someone was in my apartment. My phone was still in my hand. I could hear them in the other room. I slowly opened the door and peeked down the hallway. The front door was wide open. Not just unlocked, literally open. Then I heard this loud scraping sound from the kitchen, like metal dragging across tile. I backed up and closed my bedroom door, but I didn't lock it. I didn't want to make noise. I called 911 and whispered my address. The dispatcher told me help was on the way and asked if I could hide. Only place I could think of was my closet. So I got inside, shut the door almost all the way, and crouched down behind some old coats and boxes. Everything went quiet again. Then the footsteps started up. Slower now, coming down the hall. They stopped right outside my door. I held my breath. Then the door creaked open. I could hear them breathing, just standing there in the door frame, not moving. Through the little slats in the closet door, I saw someone walk into the room. Tall, wearing all black. They stood there for a while. I couldn't see their face, just the dark outline of them, standing completely still in the middle of my room. Then, without a word, they got down on their hands and knees, and slowly crawled under the bed. I sat there horrified and just watched the shape disappear beneath where I'd been sleeping minutes earlier. I thought to myself, how will I ever get out of this? There was no way I could get out of the room without him getting to me first. Silence followed. No footsteps, no rustling, just a terrifying stillness. I stayed frozen in that closet, behind coats I suddenly wished were thicker. My knees started to ache. I lost all sense of time. Every time I thought about making a move, I imagined what would happen if he was still under the bed, just lying there listening, waiting for me to come out. When the police finally arrived, I nearly screamed. They entered fast. I threw the closet door open and ran out, yelling that someone was in the room. But the most horrifying part was when they checked. No one was under the bed. No one in the apartment at all. I showed them the video, but they couldn't do much with just a video. To this day, I have no idea how the person that was in my apartment got in, and how they just disappeared like that. Whatever it was surely paranormal. I used to work at a rundown roadside motel just outside El Paso. It wasn't part of a chain, just a weather-beaten place, 30 rooms, one vending machine, and a manager who only came around to collect the week's earnings. I was 24 at the time. It wasn't the worst job. Mostly quiet. The guests would often be the occasional late-night trucker or tired family. I'd bring a book or scroll my phone through most of the shift, sipping lukewarm coffee and waiting for 7 a.m. to roll around. This happened last spring. I remember because it was right after that stretch of bad rain we had. The kind that floods desert roads and leaves everything smelling like wet sand and metal. The storm had knocked out our security cameras the week before, and the manager still hadn't fixed them. Not that we ever really needed them. At least that's what I thought. It was a Thursday night, a little past 1 a.m. when the guy came in. I hadn't heard a car pull up, but I saw him through the glass door, just standing there in the rain, no umbrella, wearing a dark hoodie soaked through. I buzzed him in, assuming his car was parked around the side. He stepped inside, dripping onto the floor. "Need a room?" I asked. He didn't answer at first, just looked at me. His face was pale and kind of weird, like he was trying to hold in a smirk. His eyes didn't quite focus. Then he finally said, "Yeah, just one night. Cash only. No ID." That wasn't unusual for this place, but something about him didn't sit right. I gave him room 6, one of the closer ones, so I could keep an eye on it. He took the key without a word and walked out. I watched him cross the lot, but I never saw where he came from. Still no car. I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just high. I went back to my book. About 40 minutes later, the phone at the desk rang. I picked it up. No one spoke. I said hello 3 times before finally hanging up. Before I could even sit back down, it rang again. This time, there was breathing, like someone had been running. "Front desk," I said, more annoyed than anything. Nothing. Then, just before the line clicked off, I heard a voice say, "She's not breathing." It sent a chill straight through me. I called room 6, thinking maybe he misdialed. No answer. I hung up and stared out the window for a minute. The lot was still. Room 6's curtain was drawn. I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe it was a prank. Then I noticed something on the monitor. One of the motion sensors in the hallway near the laundry room had just pinged. We didn't have guests in those rooms that night, and I hadn't seen anyone go in or out. I walked over, trying to act tough with my flashlight in hand. I passed rooms 7 and 8, which were empty and dark. When I got to the laundry door, I heard something inside. Shuffling. "Hello?" I called. "This area is staff only." No response. I opened the door slowly. It was empty, machines off, no lights. But the weirdest part was the smell. Something foul, like old meat. I shut the door, went back to the office, and locked it behind me. A little after 3 a.m., another guest, a woman from room 12, came into the lobby. She looked shaken, said she'd seen someone walking outside her window, not just walking, but standing and watching. She thought it was someone trying to break in, so she turned on the lights and the person walked off into the dark. I asked her what the person looked like. She just said, "He was wet, like dripping, even though it's not raining anymore." Room 6's curtain was still drawn. I decided to knock on the door, maybe ask if the guy needed anything. But when I got there, the room was dark. I knocked twice. No answer. I used the master key. The room was empty. Bed untouched, lights off, shower dry. No sign anyone had ever been there. I walked out into the lot confused and turned back toward the office, and that's when I saw it. Wet footprints on the concrete, bare feet, leading away from room 6 toward the back fence where the brush got thick. And right next to the door frame, scratched into the paint, were 4 words: "She is not breathing." I followed protocol, called the cops. They showed up, swept the place, took a statement. Nothing came of it. The guy never checked in with a name, he had no car, no prints in the system. So much for only cash and no ID. Room 6 hadn't been used in over a year, they told me later. Management had closed it after a domestic incident. A man had brought a woman there. She was found dead in the bathtub the next day. He disappeared before they could arrest him. They reopened the room 2 weeks before I started. I don't work there anymore, but I often think about it. Maybe the man I saw was the same man that got away. This happened last October, a few nights before Halloween. I stream on Twitch sometimes. I'm not super big or anything, maybe 40 or 50 regulars when I'm consistent. I usually play horror games, even though I kind of hate them. People like seeing me freak out, so I lean into it. Dim lights, camera on, heartbeat monitor, the whole setup. The weekend of the incident, I decided to do an all-night horror game marathon to try and grow my channel a bit. No breaks except bathroom runs. I started around 8 p.m. and the first game went fine. Pretty standard jump scares, lots of chat interaction, more viewers than usual. Everything was going great. Around 10:30, I switched to this creepy, slow-burn, psychological horror game. No action, really, just weird atmosphere and tension. I turned off all the lights in my room except for my monitor and a little LED strip behind my desk. My webcam was set up straight ahead, so viewers could see me, part of my chair, the wall behind me, and a bit of the hallway. About 45 minutes in, chat suddenly blew up. Not with subs or alerts, just messages. Stuff like, "Bro, there's someone behind you. Check your monitor." Dude, what was that? At first I thought they were just messing with me. It was a horror stream after all. I played along, turned around all dramatic, and did the whole, "Ooh, spooky ghost" bit. Chat was laughing, so I figured it was just a good moment. Then I got a DM from a regular viewer. This guy Max, who's been watching me for a while. Super chill, never trolls. He sent me a screenshot from the stream with a message that just said, "Not joking. Look at your monitor reflection." So I pulled it up. It was a frame from about a minute earlier. At first, I didn't notice anything, just me sitting at my desk. But then I looked at the glossy edge of my monitor, just barely in the reflection behind my chair. There was a figure. It was faint, but definitely there. A silhouette. Standing behind me just out of view of the webcam. My stomach dropped. I muted my mic, stood up slowly and turned around. The room was empty. Door was closed, hallway dark. I checked under the bed and in the closet. There was no one there. I sat back down and tried to laugh it off to my viewers, but I was still shaken. Then, maybe 30 seconds later, my front door creaked open. It wasn't loud, but I heard it. So did the mic. Just this long, slow creak. That door was supposed to be locked. I always lock it before I start streaming. I ripped off the headset and called out, "Hello?" No response. I grabbed this little knife I keep in my desk drawer and stepped out of my room. The stream kept going. I wasn't gone more than a minute. When I came back, chat was freaking out. A bunch of people said they saw someone walk past the doorway behind me while I was gone. No one could agree on what exactly. Some said a shoulder, others said a leg. Whatever it was fast. I ended the stream, called a friend to come over and stayed up checking every window and door twice. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning I checked the VOD and indeed someone was seen moving behind me as I went out the hallway. Twitch ended up removing the VOD a few days later. said it violated community safety policies, but didn't give any real explanation. I still have the screenshot Max sent me, though. I haven't streamed horror games since. And now I double-check the front door every time before I go live. I've always loved hiking the Rockies in late September. The air gets cooler, the leaves start turning orange, and the crowds are gone. There's this stillness that hits different. If you've been up there, you know what I mean. My buddy Mason and I have done a ton of hikes together over the years. Some rough multi-day treks, a few climbs that were probably dumber than we'd admit, even a couple of winter trips. We're not pros, but we've always known what we were doing. This trip was supposed to be chill. No service, no distractions, just us and a stretch of backcountry we hadn't explored yet. The trailhead was down this old dirt road. It was the kind of place you'd only reach if you didn't mind beating the hell out of your suspension. We signed the little logbook at the ranger box, threw on our packs, and headed out. The trail wasn't on any official map. It was something Mason found in a forum thread, some abandoned fire lookout on a ridge above the tree line. The post was vague, but the pictures looked amazing. That was enough for us. First day was smooth. We made good time, found a solid spot just under the tree line, and set up camp before dark. When night arrived, the sky was full of stars because there was zero light pollution out here. It's one of those nights that reminds you why you do this kind of thing. Only weird part was this sound we heard after dinner, off in the trees. It sounded off, like a cross between a coyote and someone whistling, but far off. We didn't think much of it. Next morning, we packed light and pushed above the tree line. That's when things really started to feel off. I don't know how to explain it exactly. The silence didn't feel peaceful anymore. Every now and then we'd stop to catch our breath, and I swear I heard footsteps behind us. Not echoes, actual steps crunching the loose rock. Mason noticed too. "You hear that?" he asked. I just nodded. I think we both felt it but didn't want to say it out loud. We camped just below the summit that night. No fire as there was nothing to burn, just rocks, wind, and a lot of sky. It got cold fast. I woke up and no longer felt tired, wanting to see the night sky again. I got out of the tent. I walked maybe 20 feet out and suddenly heard something behind me. "Mason?" I called, but no one answered. Then a second later, I heard it again. My own voice. Same words, same tone, but it came from behind this big rock maybe 15 or 20 feet away. It was like someone had recorded me and played it back. I pointed my flashlight around, but there was nothing to be seen. I ran back to the tent and shook Mason awake. He looked annoyed at first, but when I told him what happened, he got serious real fast. "I heard it too," he said. "Earlier. It copied me when I said your name, but I just thought I was hearing things." We didn't get much sleep that night. Despite that, the next morning, Mason said he wanted to check out the summit. It wasn't far away, maybe a 10 to 15 minute scramble, but I told him I'd stay back and start packing. I watched him hike up the ridge until he disappeared over the crest, and that was the last time I saw him. I waited. An hour, then 2. No sign of him. Worried, I climbed up to the summit, yelling his name the whole way. Nothing. Just wind, rock, and empty sky. No tracks, no gear, no Mason. The whole day went by, with no sign of him. As the sun started going down, I had to go back to our camp. I figured I'd wait until morning and then hike out for help. I set up a shelter, kept my knife nearby, and tried to stay calm. But that night, around 1 in the morning, I heard someone walking outside my tent. Then a voice. It was Mason's voice. "Hey man, you good? Sorry I was gone so long." It didn't feel right. I didn't respond. He spoke again. "Come on, dude. Let me in. It's freezing." "What's your middle name?" I yelled. He didn't answer. Then I heard the tent zipper start to move. I grabbed my knife and yelled, "If you open that, I swear to God." The zipper stopped. Whatever was out there just stood there for a bit. Then it walked off. I didn't sleep at all after that. I spent the rest of the night being hyper alert. When the sun came up, I stepped outside and Mason was there, standing by the old fire pit we'd used. Same clothes, same pack, even the same little scrape on his cheek from the day before. He smiled like nothing was wrong. "Where'd you go?" he asked. I just stared at him. I asked him the same thing. He swore up and down that he never went to the summit. Said we got separated and he'd spent all night trying to find me. But that made no sense. I saw him go up there, and something was different about him. It was small stuff at first. He couldn't remember certain things. Didn't look me in the eye for long. His movements were weird, stiff, like he was thinking about how to act normal. But the weirdest part was that he didn't sleep. The final night I pretended to be asleep and just watched him. He sat outside the tent staring into the dark. All night. No yawning, no stretching. Just sitting completely still. On the hike out, he kept whistling. Same tune. 6 notes. Over and over. Not like Mason used to do. This felt patterned. Almost like a code or a signal or something. We got back to the trailhead. Drove home in silence. He texted me a few times after that. Even came by once. I didn't answer. Because I don't think that's Mason. I don't know what I saw or heard on that mountain. I don't know what got him. But whatever came back down with me, it's not him. I've since done a bit of research on skinwalkers, and I hate to think that might have been what I took home instead of Mason. And I think it's waiting for something. I want to go back. I want to look for Mason. I'm sure he is still out there. A few days after we got back, Mason went missing, which further proves my theory of it not being the real Mason. I'm terrified to go back to the mountain alone, but I can't just leave him out there if he is still alive. We rented a beach house on the coast of North Carolina for the first week of July. My parents found it on some rental site, and the pictures made it look perfect. Bright blue shutters, a wraparound porch, ocean views from every room. It was exactly the kind of place you picture when you think about a good vacation. There were 5 of us: my parents, my younger brother Owen, my older sister Riley, and me. I just turned 19 and honestly didn't want to come along. But after a lot of guilt tripping about one last family trip before real life starts, I gave in. I figured I'd just spend the week reading and pretending I was somewhere else. The house was even nicer than the photos. But the first weird thing I noticed was one of the upstairs doors was locked. It was down the hallway near the bedrooms. I asked my dad about it while we were unpacking, and he said he already checked with the owner. Supposedly, it was just a supply closet for cleaning stuff. Brooms, mops, nothing to worry about. I didn't worry at first either. But the first night, I had trouble sleeping. My room was at the end of the hall, right across from that locked door. After midnight, I heard a weird noise. It sounded like something scraping slowly across the wooden floor. I sat up and listened. I figured maybe one of my siblings was up for the bathroom and went back to sleep. The next morning, no one mentioned hearing anything, and I didn't either. But the second night, it happened again. Same time, same dragging noise. But this time I also heard breathing. I got out of bed and pressed my ear to the door to listen. I thought one of my siblings were messing with me. I cracked the door open just a little. The hallway was empty. The locked door was still closed. My siblings weren't anywhere to be seen. I told myself I was imagining it. I even joked to Riley earlier that day that maybe the house was too perfect, like it needed a little creepiness to make it interesting. She laughed it off, said I'd been watching too many creepy YouTube videos. By the third night, I wasn't sleeping at all. The scraping was longer this time, like something was being dragged back and forth right in front of the locked door. I could hear it pressing right up against the wood, almost like whatever it was listening too. I just sat in my bed for what felt like hours and stared at that door. At one point, I even recorded the sound on my phone to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. But when I played it back, there was nothing. Just the quiet hum of the ceiling fan, which kind of freaked me out. I could clearly hear it, but the phone wasn't picking it up. The next morning, I told my mom about it. I said I thought something was off about the house. Maybe someone had a key or the owners had left something behind in the locked room. She brushed me off. "Sweetheart, this place is safe. Look at it. Nothing to worry about." That was the day things really changed. When I got back to my room after breakfast, I noticed the lock on my bedroom door had been replaced. Not the knob, just the lock itself. New, shiny, definitely not the one from before. And on the floor, just under the door frame, was a piece of folded notebook paper. It said in neat block letters, "Not this room." I showed it to Riley. She laughed at first, thinking it was a prank. But when we checked all the other rooms, no one else had a new lock, just me. And when I called the owner's number from the rental listing, it went straight to voicemail. I showed it to my dad, who said the owner had probably just been there to replace some old locks. Although I found it weird that he would do it while the house was booked, I accepted the explanation for now. However, the coming night would change it all. I kept the door locked and wedged a chair under the knob. I turned off all the lights and waited. Around 1 a.m., the scraping started again, over and over on the floor inside the room. Then the breathing started, followed by tapping. Slow and rhythmic tapping. It stopped around 3 a.m. The next day, I convinced my dad to check inside. He was annoyed, but finally agreed. We tried calling the owner again, no answer. Dad grabbed a screwdriver and forced the lock. Inside, the room was empty, but the floorboards were scratched, long, deep grooves running back and forth from wall to wall. No cleaning supplies, no brooms, just dust, and in the far corner, a stack of folded blankets. Next to them, a worn-out mattress. That's when I realized the scratches started right beside it. We didn't say anything to the others, but I knew someone had been living there. Maybe still was. My dad wasn't convinced, though. He said that stuff only happens in movies, and the owner was just using that room for storage. I was worried. It all seemed too weird. Luckily, we had to leave the next day. I locked my door again and wedged a chair under the knob like I had done the previous nights. Strangely, though, nothing happened at all the last night. We left early the next morning. It was early spring, and I wanted to see a part of the country I'd only ever flown over. Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, places people usually skip. It was going to be cheap and unstructured. Just me, my old Camry, and a sleeping bag in the back seat when motels got too expensive. A few days before I left, I got the idea to post on Craigslist. I figured maybe I could find someone else looking to travel a bit, split gas, maybe have some company for a leg of the trip. I posted something casual. Heading west through Missouri and Kansas. Safe, chill traveler looking for someone to split gas and stories. Email if interested. The ad was up for about 6 hours before I got a reply. His name was Mason. Said he was 28, recently left a job in construction, just trying to figure things out, and head back toward family in Colorado. He didn't have a car, but was happy to split gas and food. His email was polite, spelled correctly, no weird tone or red flags. He even sent a picture, a guy with scruffy brown hair standing next to a rusted-out pickup. I called him. He sounded normal, maybe a little quiet, but not sketchy. We agreed I'd pick him up in Columbia, Missouri the next day. He was waiting outside a gas station when I pulled up, wore a faded Carhartt jacket and carried just one canvas duffel. He shook my hand, thanked me for picking him up, and climbed in. For the first few hours, he didn't talk much. I didn't push. We just drove west, the windows cracked, music low. Every now and then he'd ask questions. where I was from, why I was doing this trip, whether I liked traveling alone. He told me bits about himself too. He'd worked framing houses, but a back injury ended that. Said his mom was sick out in Colorado Springs and he wanted to be there for her. I noticed he didn't have a phone, which struck me as odd, but he said it got stolen at a bus station a week earlier and he hadn't had the cash to replace it. Still, something about him never fully sat right. It wasn't anything he said. It was the pauses. The way he looked at you just a little too long when you spoke. The way he sometimes didn't respond to things for several seconds, like he had to rehearse his answer. That night, we stopped at a roadside motel just outside Salina, Kansas. It was one of those L-shaped buildings with outdoor entrances and flickering neon. I got us a room with 2 beds and figured it was easier than sleeping in the car. I showered first while he went out to grab snacks. When I came out, his bag was still on the bed, unopened. I didn't mean to snoop, but I caught a glimpse when it flopped over. There were no clothes, no toiletries, just a large hunting knife and what looked like bundles of paper stuffed into a manila folder. Old newspaper clippings, maybe. I didn't touch anything, just zipped it shut and sat on my bed like nothing happened. He came back 10 minutes later with a bag of chips and a couple sodas. He smiled like nothing was wrong. I pretended to be tired and got under the covers. He stayed up, sitting at the little table by the window, just watching the parking lot. I barely slept. Every sound in the room felt louder than it should have been. His movements, the faint crunch of chips, the slow pacing when he got up to stretch. By morning, I had made up my mind to drop him off at the next bus station no matter what. But when I woke up, he was gone. At first, I thought maybe he was outside smoking or grabbing breakfast. But an hour passed. Then 2. I checked with the front desk. No one had seen him. I went back to the room, confused, and found his bag still sitting there right where he left it. That same duffel with the knife and the papers. I opened it again, hands shaking. The clippings were articles about missing people, all over the Midwest, men and women around my age. Most of them were last seen traveling alone. Some of the articles had photos, dates, maps. One of the names was circled in red. It was a girl from Nebraska who had gone missing after offering someone a ride off Craigslist. I called the police. They took the bag, asked me questions for hours. I showed them his photo, gave them the email and the Craigslist ad, everything. But his name wasn't real. The email was already deactivated. The number he gave me was disconnected. And the photo, when they checked the metadata, was years old, from some random Facebook profile that hadn't been active since 2018. They never found him. They couldn't link him to any specific crime either. No DNA, no fingerprints, just a bag full of creepy articles and a knife that hadn't been used for anything they could prove. I finished the rest of the trip alone. I didn't pick up any more passengers, didn't talk to strangers, and I haven't posted on Craigslist since. I still think about Mason sometimes. Wonder why he let me go. Wonder how many people he's ridden with or continue to ride with. How many didn't make it to the next town. Or how close I came to not making it myself. This happened a few years ago when I was 16 and my younger brother was 14. It was during summer break, and our parents were out for the night celebrating one of their friends' birthdays. They told us to just stay inside and behave while they were gone, but of course we didn't listen. We thought it'd be fun to set up a tent in the backyard and camp out for the night. We dragged out some sleeping bags, snacks, and flashlights, and planned to stay up late telling scary stories or watching stuff on our phones until we passed out. It was quiet back there. All you could hear was crickets and the occasional car way off in the distance. At first, it felt like a normal night. But around midnight, something changed. We were lying in the tent talking when I heard what sounded like someone coming closer to our tent. I immediately thought my brother was messing with me, but I could literally see him lying still beside me. He heard it too. The footsteps kept going around the tent. I whispered to my brother, asking if maybe it was just Dad messing with us. He pulled out his phone to call him. When someone picked up, it wasn't my dad. It was his friend Mark. He sounded kind of drunk and said, "Hey man, I'm at Murphy's with your dad. He's at the bar getting another drink." We just looked at each other. Whoever was walking around our tent wasn't our dad. Right after the phone call ended, the footsteps stopped for a second, like they'd heard us ringing. Then they started again, even slower this time, dragging their feet as they circled the tent one more time. Whatever it was just inches from the tent walls. We wanted to run into the house, but we were both terrified that unzipping the tent would give whoever it was a clear view, or worse, a chance to grab us. We stayed completely still. I could feel my brother's heart beating rapidly. He was as scared as I was. Eventually, I whispered to my brother to keep his phone ready in case we needed to call 911. I crawled to the flap and grabbed my dad's old baseball bat. My brother and I had been messing around with it earlier that day, just hitting rocks in the backyard, and we'd luckily left it in the tent without thinking. I just sat there holding it and listening. The footsteps didn't stop completely. Every 15 or 20 minutes, they'd come back. Sometimes something would scrape the tent walls. Hours later, we heard our parents finally come home. As soon as we heard the car doors slam, we sprinted out of the tent and ran inside to tell them everything. As we were running toward the house, we heard what sounded like an evil laughter behind us. I looked back and saw a pair of glowing eyes in the dark. We sprinted to our parents, but they didn't take it seriously. Said the glowing eyes were probably just a cat or something. But I know what we heard. Those footsteps weren't just our imagination. It wasn't just a cat. They were controlled, quiet, and very aware that we were alone out there. Even now, years later, I don't like being in that backyard at night. This happened about 4 summers ago when I was still in high school. It was one of those July nights that stayed hot even past midnight. Everyone had their windows open, trying to cool off. There were 4 of us: me, Noah, Taylor, and Chris. We'd been riding our bikes around town, getting slushies from the gas station, just wasting time. Around 12:30, someone, probably Taylor, suggested sneaking into the community pool. It wasn't hard. There was a spot at the back of the fence where it didn't quite meet the ground. We'd used it plenty of times before. We all slipped through and made our way inside. Once we were in, it was quiet. The pool was dark, barely lit by a few streetlights beyond the fence. The water looked still and untouched. As we were dropping our stuff near the edge, Noah's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and said, "Hang on, I've got to take this. Be right back." Then he stepped back through the fence and walked toward the parking lot, phone to his ear. The rest of us stayed. Chris jumped in first. Taylor followed with a cannonball into the deep end. I sat on the edge, legs in the water. A few minutes passed. Then someone walked into the pool area. It was Noah. He was already in his swim trunks and white t-shirt, but he didn't have his phone. He didn't say anything, just walked to the edge, sat down, and slid into the water. Taylor tossed a pool noodle at him. "Took you long enough." Noah gave a quick smile, but still didn't speak. He swam slowly toward the deep end, then went under. At first, we thought he was holding his breath, just messing around. But 30 seconds passed, then a minute. "Noah?" I called out. Still nothing. No bubbles, no movement. I got in and swam over. Couldn't see anything. Taylor dove down and checked the bottom. "He's not here," she said, pulling herself out of the pool. Chris and I got out too. "Okay, what the hell just happened? Where is he?" Taylor cried. "I don't know. He was just there," Chris said. I was about to call 911 as we heard footsteps approaching us. We all turned toward the sound, not knowing what to expect. Noah was walking in, again, this time holding his phone in one hand, bike helmet in the other. "Hey," he said. "Sorry. Ava was losing it over something. Took forever to calm her down." We didn't say anything at first, just stared at him in shock. Then Chris said, "You were just in the pool." Noah looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "You walked in. You got in the water, we thought you were messing with us, but you never came back up." Noah laughed like we were trying to prank him. But then he saw we were serious. His shirt and shorts were completely dry. We decided that we'd had enough for tonight. We wanted to get out. We grabbed our stuff and left. But before we did, though, we checked around the edge of the pool for footprints with our phone lights. Wet ones. From whoever we saw get in and never come out. There weren't any. Just ours. We pointed our lights down on the water to light it up as best as we could to see if someone was down there. But it was empty. We hurried out of there.